next one, I live in Los Angeles, which is really the mecca of being at the right place at the right time. So we think about luck a lot. I'm Irish. My family has 1,000,000 four-leaf clovers and horseshoes everywhere. Luck's something we think about a lot. There's the movie, about serendipity. I love serendipity, and I know that, I hope anyway, that it's a real thing. But when it comes to business, a lot of times, we have that one colleague or friend that always seems to land at the right place at the right time. And we think, darn it, why isn't that me? Why can't it be me this time? Why can't I win the lottery? So, whether it's serendipity or whether it is strategy is something that we're going to be exploring with this next session. Because there are those times when opportunities present themselves and we don't necessarily see them for what they are. So here to help us see that and understand it and take advantage of it as a strategy and not just serendipity is Alicia Abella, PhD and Executive Director of Innovative Services Research, mouthful, big title, at AT&T Labs. Alicia.
Good morning. I'm very happy to be here today, and I think I'm going to be switching gears a little bit from what we've been hearing about previously, and I hope that what I have to present to you today is a little bit of advice that you can take back to your organizations to help you perhaps turn that seemingly serendipitous situation into something that you can cultivate as your long-term strategy. And the way that I'm going to do it today is by giving you examples and stories of the ways that I've done it. So a lot of that's going to be weaved into what I'm going to talk about here today. So it's a little bit of my story weaved into here, as Jocelyn was suggesting, but I'm not boasting. All right. So I like this adage a lot. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So yes, sometimes you look at somebody who landed that big contract or got that nice award, and you think, oh, he or she is so lucky. But in fact, most of the times it's not luck. It's really about how they were prepared to take opportunities. They were prepared, always prepared. So I want to make sure that that's one of the things that resonate and you take away with you today. So at this point, I want to show a little clip. I'm a big Walt Disney fan, and I learned just yesterday that there's a museum here in San Francisco, not too far away, about Walter Disney. So I'm going to play you a clip of a movie that I like very much. And Rick, if you don't mind, you can start that movie.
I know it sounds sordid, but you'll be rewarded when at last I am given my dues. And injustice deliciously square. Be prepared.
Yeah, be prepared. We'll be prepared. For what?
Okay. So you might be asking yourself now at this point, what do I need to be prepared for? Be prepared for what? Now, I'm not implying that you're the hyenas in this movie, but The Lion King is a great movie. And I thought that this was very appropriate. And I hope you got to see some of the lyrics that went past. But it's, be prepared for a chance of a lifetime. You'll be rewarded. A shiny new era is coming to pass. Be prepared. So now the question becomes, well, be prepared for what? And I could say, well, for anything, right? And that's true, but for this particular segment, I'm going to focus really on being prepared for what you might be able to do in your career, in your organization. Okay? So I'm going to take a few examples. I'm going to walk through those examples. So one of them is be prepared for a chance meeting. Okay? Something you didn't prepare for necessarily, but you still should be prepared for when you run into somebody that might be able to help you. Be also prepared for that planned meeting. And you'll see what I mean when I get into that one. Be prepared for the elevator ride. I'm sure you've heard about this one before, right? Have your elevator pitch ready. And, I've heard many different stories about how long that elevator pitch should be. I guess it depends on the size of your building, right? Where my husband works, you probably have a longer time because he's like 80 floors, right? But my building is 2 flights. And so that doesn't give you much time. And in fact, my experience has been that whenever I run into an executive, I have probably at most 30 seconds. So I've heard everything from 30 seconds to 2 minutes. But Nonetheless, be prepared for that elevator ride. And then be prepared for the walk from the bathroom. And this will be my humorous piece, I think, added at the end. So let's start then with being prepared for a chance meeting. And here's where I'll start with some of my personal stories. So it was only a few months ago that I happened to have an opportunity to have a chance conversation with somebody from public relations in my company. I work for AT&T. And he and I know each other from other occasions and events that we've participated in together. And he says, "Oh, Alicia, what have you been doing lately? What has your group been doing lately? What kind of projects are you working on?" And so I proceeded to tell him some of the things that we've been working on. And he says, "Wow, the CTO is giving a meeting and a presentation to the AT&T Board of Directors next month. Maybe this is the kind of stuff he'd like to share with them. Let me go talk to him and see what he says." Next day, I get a call from PR saying, "The CTO loves the stuff you're doing. He wants you to come out next week and give a presentation to the AT&T Board of Directors." Wow. And this was in Colorado Springs, really nice place. And my boss even had never gotten an opportunity to talk to the board of directors. And his boss had not gotten an opportunity to talk to the board of directors. And yet there I was, being prepared to give a talk and a presentation to the AT&T board of directors, just because I happened to walk into this person from PR, and I told them about what we were working on. And I like to say that I talk about the work that I do with a lot of passion and energy and confidence. And I think I sold it because of the way that I communicated that information to him. And then I was able to do the same in Colorado to the board of directors that day as well. So I got a very nice note of thank you and appreciation from the AT&T president after that event. And I bet a lot of my peers were very jealous that day. So that's the chance meeting. Now, this was also related to that board of directors meeting. So the board of directors meeting, of course, is a very planned event. And we planned, and we had pre-meeting calls and pre-meeting calls to the pre-meeting calls, and everything had to be structured just right. And when we got to the event, we also had a scheduled time where I had to talk with the CTO, and we had to prepare how we were going to shift and give the presentations. We were giving live demonstrations. If you've ever had to give a live demo, it's really nerve-wracking, right? Because if something can go wrong, it will during the demo, right? So we had to practice this. Now I thought to myself, well, not only am I going to have an opportunity to talk to the board of directors, but I'm going to have an opportunity to spend a good 2 to 3 hours with my CTO. What can I talk to the CTO about that could advantage me for some of the work that we're doing in the future? Because surely I'll have that opportunity. So now here I was preparing for the planned meeting to talk to my CTO. It wasn't enough that I was talking to the board of directors. I wanted to try and motivate the work that I was doing with the CTO. And I had a project in mind that I thought is a good project. It's a good concept, a good idea, but I needed funding to support it. And I thought, well, maybe let me prepare a nice way to explain this project to my CTO while I'm practicing with the demo. So we were in the room, and we practiced it, and we got everything going, and we ended a little bit early. And I said to him, I said, "Do you have a minute? I'd like to talk to you about a new project that's going on in my group." He said, "Sure." So I told him about the idea. He says, "Sounds great." Next day was the meeting to the board of directors, and that went very smoothly. And at one point, the CTO goes off script, and he has a script. He went off script, and he tells the board of directors, "There's this new project that Alicia is working on, and this is what it's about." And I thought, oh my God, he's telling the board of directors about it. Now he has to fund it. 2 weeks later, I got the funding. So be prepared also for the plan meeting. Right. And hopefully one day you'll all be using that product. Okay, so shifting gears a little bit then to the elevator ride. So this one is more about my experiences in talking to these higher level executives. We like to joke a lot about how they have a limited time span for how long they can concentrate on what you want to tell them. And having had enough experiences with this, I think that's kind of true. So you need to be prepared to, if you're going to say something to them and you want to talk to them either about who you are, what you do, or maybe you come up to them with an ask of some kind, which I think you should always have prepared what you want to ask them. Make it short, very succinct, very concise, very clear. And it's really not so much because they can't absorb it. It's really just the time window you have to present it is very short. Because a lot of the times it's either in the elevator or it's in a big event with lots of people who are vying for that person's attention. So you only have a little bit of time. So I have an example where I was also in a position where I knew I was going to be in a meeting with the chief executive officer for AT&T Wireless. And I was trying to work with his marketing organization. And I was having a little bit of troubles getting through to the chief marketing officer and getting his people to respond to some of my needs and some of my requests for meetings. And so I thought, well, let me just go to the top. So that's another thing I'm not afraid to do. Sometimes my boss gets upset at me because I'm going over his head. But sometimes I'm in those situations where I can meet with these individuals and he's not. So why shouldn't I? So I do. And then I send him an email with the subject line, heads up, just to let him know that I've done this in case it comes back to him. And he's a good sport about it. He generally doesn't get upset. So I had an opportunity one day to meet with the CEO. And I introduced myself, and I told him that I wanted, actually ahead of that meeting, I told him I wanted 5 minutes of his time. That's what I did. And he's very good. He actually responded to my email. And he says, sure. So when I saw him, he knew that I wanted those 5 minutes to talk to him. And I told him my situation, and he says, okay, no problem, I'll help you out. And the next week I had a meeting with his chief marketing officer, one-on-one. And so it is possible, and don't be afraid to ask even the chief executive officer for help, because in general, they will be receptive. And in fact, they'll probably welcome that request. Okay. So, be prepared for the walk from the bathroom. Now, if you look closely at this picture, it's not taking place at WITI, because the line at the bathroom is actually in the men's room and not the women's room. But it is a technology conference. This is, again, a situation where I found myself in a meeting where the chief executive officer of AT&T Wireless was going to be there. And, again, I had a project that I wanted him to know about. Now, I knew it was going to be hard. It was in New York City, and it was at the Waldorf Astoria, and it was a big event, and there were thousands of people there. And I knew I was going to have a very small amount of time with him. And at one point, I spot him, and he went into the bathroom. And I knew there's only one exit from that bathroom. So what did I do? I waited outside the bathroom for him. It must have looked pretty funny, but to the other men, that the woman was waiting outside the men's bathroom, but that's what I did, because I wanted that opportunity to speak with him. And he was in the bathroom because the event was about to begin. And once that started, I would have lost him. So I waited outside the bathroom. And he came out, and I cornered him. And by this point, he knows me, right? And he says, let me guess, you have something to ask me. I said, yes, I do. And so I proceeded to tell him about this project that I'm working on, and that there's another part of his organization that I'm trying to get involved with. And he says, yeah, no problem, go talk to this person. And he told me the person to talk to. And today, that project, too, is funded. And we're working on it. So, and it's funny, because recently, again, it was just as recent as last week, I was in Brooklyn at another event where he was there. He must think I'm following him or stalking him, I think. And I approached him and I said, do you have a minute? And he says, you always want to talk about business. But it's the way to make things happen. And it helps grease the wheels. So he's helped me grease the wheels, as many of the other conversations I've had have helped grease the wheels for some of the work that I've done. All right. So that's about being prepared, right? Having your ask, being able to succinctly and concisely talk about who you are, what you do. So now there's opportunities. So some of these opportunities are given to you. Some of them you have to create, like standing in front of the bathroom. Right? I was creating an opportunity to speak to the CEO. So you have to grab those opportunities. The question is, and this is a question I often get asked, how do you know which opportunities to take and which not to take? And I'm confronted a lot with those questions myself, because I'll get many invitations to attend this meeting or that event or this event. I can't always accept them all. So I have to decide which one I should take. And most of the time, the rule of thumb that I use is really, who's going to be there? Are there going to be people there that I would want to talk to, interact with, get to know? Is the CEO of Mobility going to be there? Those kinds of questions are the ones that lead me to accept or not a particular opportunity. Now, it may be that sometimes I'm wrong, that I will have passed on an opportunity that maybe I shouldn't have. I won't know that, though. So I have another interesting story. And this one I like to call, I like to call it as get out of the dressing room and onto the stage. So it was 2 years ago that I was named Top 5 Women of the Year by Hispanic Business Magazine. And I was very honored to have been given that award. And there was going to be a luncheon in Los Angeles. And I had never actually been to Los Angeles, being an East Coast girl. And I thought, great, we'll get to go to Los Angeles, I'll participate in this event. So I flew out there, and I was told I had to give acceptance remarks. So I wrote my acceptance remarks. And I get there, and only 2 of the 5 women actually went to the awards luncheon, which I found surprising and a little disappointing. Maybe they had a good reason for not being there, but I thought, what a missed opportunity. So because there was only 2 women there out of the 5, the poor editor of the magazine was a little bit in a frenzy, because he had this panel that he was hoping one of the women would moderate, but now that woman wasn't there. So he asked me to moderate the panel. Then he asked me also to give the closing remarks, in addition to my acceptance remarks. So needless to say, I got a lot of stage time. So I was up in front of the stage, in front of a group about this size, for quite a lengthy part of that luncheon. And as in many of those meetings, the event ended. There was lots of conversation, networking. I collected a lot of business cards, like I usually do, put them in my purse, and off I flew back to New Jersey. And it wasn't until a few weeks later that the fact that I went to that luncheon led to another opportunity. So, opportunities taken now might lead to opportunities in the future. And it's hard to know what opportunities taken today will lead to in the future, right? It's easy looking back to know, yes, it's because I went there and I did this and I did that and I said this, that happened. But while it's happening, you don't know that. It's not like a connect the dots where you have all the numbers laid out and just follow the numbers along, right? So you have to be able to do that. So a few weeks after that luncheon, I'm sitting at my office composing an email, my phone rings. I pick up the phone, and the man on the other end of the line introduces himself and says we met at the awards luncheon in Los Angeles. Don't remember him, right? So I'm, hi! Meanwhile, I'm digging through my purse, right? Throwing my lipstick and tissues on the floor while I pick up the business cards, and I find the business card. Yeah, the weather's good here, right? Okay. And I pick up the business card, and it has the presidential seal on it. And he tells me that he was very impressed by what I had to say and my panel moderating and my closing remarks and my acceptance speech, that he would like me to join him to be on the Presidential Advisory Commission on Educational Excellence for Hispanics. I said, Presidential Commission, as in President Obama? And he says, yes, President Obama would be selecting. I said, absolutely, yes. When can I start? So that luncheon that I went to, and those other 3 women didn't, now led to my presidential commission, which began in May of this year. And in fact, I have a second meeting this Thursday there in the White House. So I've gotten to the White House, I've gotten to meet the president, I've shaken his hand. all because of these opportunities that I took, right, you could say. Now, if I go to the slides again, so those connecting the dots, right, led to this White House initiative and my being on this commission. But I can go even further back and think, well, now, if I go further back in connecting the dots, so now I'm on this commission, and that's because of the luncheon. Why was I at the luncheon? So I was at the luncheon because I was being awarded the Top 5 Women of the Year. A lot of that had to do with the fact that I do a lot of volunteer work, and that I am the vice president of a nonprofit organization called the Young Science Achievers Program, which is to encourage young women and minority students to get interested and excited about science, technology, engineering, and math. And so at this stage, I wanted to just say a little bit about volunteerism, because it certainly has helped me in my career, even in the corporate environment, the fact that I've participated in nonprofit organizations. And the reason why it has is because it gives me, it's one of those situations where everybody on those nonprofit organizations tend to be volunteers themselves. And now, as a vice president or a president of those organizations, you're now leading people who are volunteers. You have, in a sense, no authority over them. It's not like my direct reports who have to do what I tell them to do because I'm their boss. Here, you don't have that situation. Right? Here, they're all volunteers. So how do you get them to follow you and to get excited about the same things you're excited about? And so that experience has helped me also in getting the CEO excited about my project, getting the CTO to tell the board of directors that there's this great new project that they're working on. So if you get an opportunity to be part of an organization, a nonprofit, for example, it's a good opportunity, in my opinion, because of what you can learn from being there. There are a lot of people who think that they have to volunteer for many things. And I think it's better if, in fact, you volunteer for one, maybe two at most, organizations that you feel truly passionate about. And then you can devote more time to them. Okay, so this is sort of my last point, quality networking. We've already heard a few times this morning this word networking, both in the social context, but also in business, here during this event. And I always keep remembering that business card that I had to dig out of my purse to figure out who this person was, because you collect so many of these. And my personal feeling is that it's not the size of your Rolodex, really. It's about the quality of the people in them. So it's better to have a smaller deck than a big one, because in order to have a group of people you want to work with, you have to have time to cultivate and build those relationships with these people. And if you have too many of them, you're not going to have time to cultivate these relationships. So at this point, I've been cultivating a relationship with the chief executive officer for 2 years. And with people underneath him as well that help me out on a day-to-day basis. For years, I developed these relationships because it takes time to build that kind of trust that's going to allow for a successful business endeavor that you're doing with this individual. So I try to limit the people that I interact with. And I'm selective. So how do I select who I want to build relationships with? Typically, it's people who I think myself and the people in my group and the work that I do will benefit from having a connection with those individuals. It's something I can learn from them, and we can collaborate and work together towards an accomplishment, towards a success together. I also have to like them. If you don't have a good rapport, it's not going to work. So if they're good individuals to work with, those are also people that I tend to use. So that's sort of my little pitch on quality networking. Because when you go back and think again about all the stories I told, a lot of it really has to do with people and that network of people. So this is just to summarize. I think these are the things I talked about today, right? Being prepared, taking opportunities, and building relationships. They're all intertwined in how it's not serendipity, it's really about shrewd strategy and being prepared so that that strategy may appear to the external world as serendipity, but in fact, it's not. So with that, I'll open it up to questions. Thank you.